So if you bought, let's say 100 shares of a major tech stock about 10 years ago,
Okay, yeah.
would you only check its price on the exact day you bought it and then literally never look at the ticker symbol again?
Oh, of course not. I mean, you'd probably be checking it weekly or, maybe even daily.
Right. You would want to know exactly how that investment was performing.
Absolutely.
But the crazy thing is, millions of us do exactly this with the single largest financial asset we will ever own.
Yeah, we really do.
We buy a home, and the purchase price is just, well, it's burned into our brains for decades.
Down to the absolute penny.
Exactly, down to the penny.
Mm-hmm.
Usually because we had to sign a mountain of paperwork just to get the keys.
Right. It's a very traumatic day for your writing hand.
It is. But as for what that house is actually worth today, most of us have this massive, glaring blind spot.
It really is a strange disconnect, in how we manage our financial lives. We treat the purchase price of our home like it is carved in stone, like it's a fixed number in our personal history, while the current value is treated as this complete, impenetrable mystery.
We just accept not knowing.
We do. We just accept it.
Which is wild when you really think about it. And today, our mission for this deep dive is to basically shatter that mystery.
I love that.
We are unpacking some highly actionable insights from real estate professionals, and they tackle this exact blind spot head on.
It's all about the mechanics of home equity, right?
That's the one. We are going to look at why we are so in the dark about our own homes, and honestly, more importantly, what real wealth we are just leaving on the table by not paying attention.
There's a lot of wealth being left on the table.
So much.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really grasp what this blind spot is actually hiding, we have to start with the fundamental engine driving the whole thing, the mechanics of home equity itself.
And getting that definition crystal clear is, well, it's the perfect starting point. Because while people hear the term equity all the time, the actual mechanics are surprisingly misunderstood.
So how do they define it in the source material?
Well, stripped down to its absolute basics, your home equity is simply the difference between your property's current market value and the remaining balance on your mortgage.
Okay, so it's a gap.
Exactly. It is the gap between what the house could theoretically sell for this afternoon and what you still owed the bank.
And the research we're looking at points out that this number doesn't just, sit there. It isn't static at all.
Not even a little bit. It grows.
Right. It grows through what we could call a dual engine effect. Engine number one is just the open market.
Yeah, the market forces.
As home values change, and let's be real estate values in many areas have moved significantly over the last few years.
Oh, massively.
So the top line value for home goes up. That is the first engine just quietly doing its work in the background.
Which brings us to the second engine, which is honestly entirely driven by your own behavior.
Which is what? The payments.
Exactly. Every single time you make a monthly mortgage payment, a portion of that money goes toward paying down the principal balance of that loan.
Right. You're chipping away the debt.
Yeah, and especially as you get further into your loan term, that principal reduction actually speeds up.
Oh, interesting.
So you have the value of the asset potentially rising on one end due to market forces, and the underlying debt actively shrinking on the other end due to your payments.
Wow. So they both pull away from each other.
Right. Both of those simultaneous actions widen the gap. They both build your equity.
It is an incredibly dynamic process. You basically have these two powerful financial engines running 24/7.
Without you even having to think about it.
Which makes our collective blind spot even crazier to me. Wait, why is there such a massive disconnect here?
It's a great question.
I mean, we pull up our banking apps on our phones while standing in line for coffee just to check our checking account balances.
Right, checking a balance of like $200.
Exactly. We get push notifications about minor changes to our credit scores. We log into our 401ks. Why do we completely ignore the biggest numbers growing inside our own walls?
What's fascinating here, and the sources really dig into this, is the underlying psychology of how we interact with our homes compared to our other financial vehicles.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about a checking account or a mutual fund or a stock portfolio. The primary exclusive function of those things is financial.
Yeah, they're just numbers on a screen.
Exactly. They exist only on screens or paper. You don't live inside your mutual fund.
That would be very uncomfortable.
Right. But a home is where you sleep. It is where you raise your kids, where you cook your meals.
Host Thanksgiving, watch television, all of that.
Yes. The primary day-to-day utility of a house is shelter. It's comfort and safety.
So it's a deeply emotional space, not just a spreadsheet.
Precisely. We experience homes primarily as living spaces. Because that daily lived reality is so tangible and so emotional, we completely forget that they are also dynamic financial assets.
Growing from those two ends we just discussed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The financial utility of the home becomes practically invisible to us because the physical utility is just so prominent in our daily lives.
Man, that makes so much sense. We can't literally see the equity sitting on the living room couch, so we just forget it's there.
Right.
We're too busy vacuuming the rug or, fixing a leaky faucet to think about the macroeconomic value of the structure itself.
We get bogged down in the maintenance.
But our materials today don't just want us to conceptually remember that equity exists. They actually prescribe a specific, actionable rhythm for how we should interact with this information.
Yeah, they give a very clear timeline.
Because equity is this constantly moving target driven by those two engines, the obvious question is, how often should we actually be running the numbers?
The guidance from the professionals is totally unambiguous on this point.
What's the rule?
The specific recommendation is that homeowners should be reviewing their home equity at least twice a year.
Twice a year,
Uh-huh.
which completely flies in the face of what, like 99% of people do.
Oh, absolutely.
The conventional wisdom is totally different. The common mindset is that you only need to know your home's value if you are calling a real estate agent to put a for sale sign in the front yard.
And that is exactly what industry experts call the myth of moving.
Myth of moving.
Yeah. It is one of the most pervasive and frankly damaging misconceptions in personal finance.
Really damaging.
Yes, because you absolutely do not need to be planning a move or even thinking about moving to benefit from knowing where you stand.
That makes sense.
In fact, the sources note that real estate professionals frequently run updated equity reports for clients who have zero intention of selling for the next 20 years.
Wow. Okay, so they just want to know the number. They want the data.
Exactly. They want an accurate, real-time picture of one of their largest financial assets. It is about total financial awareness, not necessarily triggering a transaction.
I look at it a lot like going to the dentist.
Okay, I like this.
Checking your equity twice a year is just like going to the dentist for your biannual cleaning. You go in every 6 months so they can take a look, clear away any plaque, and just make sure everything is healthy.
Right, preventative care.
Exactly. You don't wait until you are in agonizing pain and need an emergency root canal to finally look inside your mouth.
No, that would be terrible.
You check on it when things are fine so they actually stay fine.
Yeah.
So in real estate terms, waiting for a major move or a sudden job relocation or even a financial crisis to figure out your home's value, that's the emergency root canal.
It really is.
You shouldn't wait for a massive, stressful life event to finally open up the hood and see what your equity's doing. It should just be a routine, low-stress checkup.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, treating a home with that level of routine, unsentimental oversight is foundational financial hygiene.
Financial hygiene, I like that term.
Think about how wealth is actually managed. Your home is likely the most substantial piece of your overall net worth.
For most people, yeah, by far.
So you would never let a retirement portfolio sit unexamined for 10 years, just crossing your fingers and hoping it was doing okay. Right.
No way. You would review it quarterly, or annually at least.
Exactly. Your home deserves that exact same regular oversight. Checking your equity twice a year isn't some pre-sales tactic. It is fundamental wealth management.
It changes the relationship.
It does.
Yeah.
It shifts your relationship with the house entirely. You evolve from just being a passive consumer of shelter to being an active manager of a major asset.
Okay, so let's say you are listening to this and you take that advice. You reach out to a professional, you get this biannual checkup, and you now have this freshly updated equity report sitting on your kitchen island.
Okay, you've got the data.
If you aren't planning to sell and pack up the moving trucks, what exactly do you do with this data?
Right, how is it actionable?
Because getting a number is one thing, but making it actionable is where the actual value lies. And the sources outline essentially 5 ways to put this data to work. 5 hidden levers you can pull once you know your true equity.
Let's walk through those 5 levers because they build on each other in a really logical progression.
Let's do it. Lever number 1.
The first lever is simply understanding your current financial position. It sounds basic, but it is profound.
Right. This goes back to the idea of mapping your total net worth.
Yes.
You can't possibly plan for retirement or even assess your overall financial health today if your biggest asset is mentally valued at a number from, like, 2017.
You are operating on outdated maps.
And operating on outdated maps usually leads you to the wrong destination.
Exactly. So the second lever builds on that, which is tracking how your property's value has changed over time.
Okay, so looking at the trend.
Right. This isn't just about looking at a static snapshot. It is about observing the trend line. Are values in your specific neighborhood accelerating rapidly? Are they starting to cool off or maybe plateau?
Which tells you about the momentum of your asset.
Yes.
It lets you see if that first engine, the market value, is revving really high or if it's just idling.
Exactly. If you check twice a year, you are essentially watching a movie of your wealth rather than just looking at a photograph.
I love that, watching a movie. And that leads directly to the third lever, which is preparing for future real estate decisions.
Because real estate transitions rarely happen overnight.
Right, they take time.
Maybe you aren't moving today, but what about in 3 years when your oldest child graduates high school? Or in 5 years when you want to downsize?
You need to plan for those.
Having a historical documented record of your equity, checked twice a year, allows you to model out those future life transitions with real, concrete data.
So you aren't just guessing.
No, you can start planning your next down payment today, rather than relying on sudden, panicked guesswork when the time eventually comes.
Now here's where it gets really interesting for me. It is the fourth and fifth levers on this list, because this is where the data turns into tangible lifestyle changes.
This is the fun part.
Lever number 4 is evaluating renovation or investment opportunities. And lever 5 is determining whether refinancing or restructuring that equity makes sense.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly. So how does transitioning from guessing what your equity is to actually knowing the exact number change a homeowner's behavior when they want to, say, finally renovate that outdated 1990s kitchen?
It changes the entire paradigm because it transitions you from a place of financial vulnerability to a place of financial leverage.
Okay, break that down for me.
Let's look at your kitchen renovation scenario.
Let's say it's $50,000.
Okay, $50,000. If you are just guessing at your equity and you blindly assume you only have a little bit of wiggle room, how do you pay for that?
Well, you might drain your liquid cash savings.
Right, your emergency fund, which makes your family incredibly vulnerable if a medical issue arises.
Yeah, that's risky.
Or worse, you might put a chunk of it on high-interest credit cards or take out a high-rate personal loan.
Because you feel backed into a corner. You feel like you don't have any other options to upgrade your life.
But if you have your biannual equity report and you know for a proven fact that the dual engine effect has quietly built up, say, $150,000 of equity in your home.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. Your behavior completely shifts. You can use the house itself as a tool to improve the house.
You leverage the equity.
Yes. You might pull some of that proven equity out through a home equity line of credit at a much lower secured interest rate to fund the kitchen renovation.
So you are safely investing back into the property.
Increasing its market value even further, and you do it without destroying your monthly cash flow or draining your emergency fund.
You are putting the asset to work, and the fifth lever, refinancing, is just as powerful, right?
It really is. With an accurate equity report, you might realize you have crossed the 20% equity threshold and can finally drop your private mortgage insurance.
PMI, yeah. That saves you hundreds of dollars a month just by itself.
Exactly. Or you might realize you have enough equity to consolidate other high-interest debts into your mortgage, basically restructuring your financial life entirely.
This is massive.
But here's the key. The sources emphasize this heavily. You cannot confidently make those strategic wealth-building moves if you are operating in the dark.
You can't leverage a tool if you don't even know it's sitting in your toolbox.
Exactly.
That is a huge perspective shift. But of course, knowing that we need this information twice a year and knowing how powerful those 5 levers are for our financial health brings up a very modern dilemma.
I think I know where you're going with this.
If I am listening to this and I know I need my home's value today, the immediate temptation is to just pull up my smartphone, open one of the big real estate apps, and look at whatever automated number the algorithm spits out.
Right. Zillow, Redfin, all of them.
It takes literally 5 seconds. Why do I need to talk to a human professional? But the insights we're exploring tackle this head on, offering a really stark warning about the methodology we use to find this number.
Yeah, the sources acknowledge that temptation perfectly because it is the path of least resistance.
It's just so easy.
It is. And automated valuation models, the online estimates, they can be a useful starting point. They give you a broad, generalized baseline of what is happening in a zip code.
Yeah.
But we have to heavily emphasize their blind spots Algorithms do not and cannot account for a whole host of crucial, highly personalized factors.
The research lists those missing factors quite specifically, right?
Yes. Algorithms notoriously struggle to account for a home's current internal condition, the quality of recent improvements, specific lot characteristics, or the nuances of hyperlocal neighborhood sales.
Right. It contrasts that algorithmic guess with a personalized equity review done by a professional, which provides a meticulously realistic look at your property's actual market position.
Which makes all the difference.
And crucially, it notes this personalized review is standard practice. It can usually be done with absolutely zero obligation.
Right, it's just helpful information provided by an expert so you know exactly where you stand.
But going back to those missing variables, the condition, the improvements, the specific location,
We cannot overstate this. Those are the exact things that dictate true market value in the real world.
it makes me think about the difference between buying a fast fashion suit online versus going in to get a tailored suit.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
The online estimate is the fast fashion suit. It is cut for a generic statistical average.
Right.
The algorithm takes your square footage, looks at public tax records, looks at the zip code, and cuts a suit that supposedly fits a medium.
But your house isn't a generic medium.
No house is. A personalized review is the tailored suit. A professional actually measures the specific dimensions of your reality.
Yeah, they account for the brand new composite deck you just built last summer.
Exactly. They account for the fact that you finished the basement.
This raises an important question about the fundamental limitations of automated data, especially remote data.
Right.
An algorithm, no matter how much aggregate data it processes, cannot physically see inside your house.
You can't smell the fresh paint.
No. It can't see the high-end quality of the new quartz countertops. It doesn't know that your specific lot backs up to a beautiful, quiet conservation area.
While a house just down the street, which the algorithm thinks is an identical comparable property, backs up to a noisy 24-hour gas station.
Exactly. The algorithm just sees 2 3-bedroom houses in the same zip code with the same square footage built in the same year.
It is totally blind to the lived reality of the space.
It completely lacks localized context. And if we connect this back to those 5 hidden levers we discussed earlier.
The refinancing and renovations.
Right, like making the decision to refinance or taking out a loan for a major renovation or planning a retirement downsize. Relying on an incomplete algorithmic guess could lead you to make wildly inaccurate, potentially disastrous financial decisions.
Wow, okay. Think about the risk on both sides.
Yeah, play that out.
If the algorithm heavily undervalues your home because it missed your recent improvements, you might mistakenly think you can't afford a necessary renovation. Or you might delay a life-changing move because you think you lack the equity.
You basically leave your life on hold because a computer gave you bad data.
Exactly.
And conversely, if the algorithm wildly overvalues your home because it doesn't know your roof is 20 years old and actively leaking,
Oh, man.
you might over-leverage yourself, borrow too much money against the house, and get into serious financial trouble.
That's scary.
The human element, the personalized review from a professional who understands the micro-market that grounds your entire financial strategy in reality rather than a generic statistical average.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We've covered a lot of vital ground today by unpacking these insights.
We really have.
We started by shining a light on the homeowner's blind spot and uncovering the hidden mechanics of home equity.
That incredibly powerful dual engine effect.
Right. The market rising while you actively pay down your debt month after month. And then we completely dismantled the myth of moving, replacing it with the vital twice-a-year checkup rule.
Remember, you don't wait for a root canal. You treat your home's equity like a routine trip to the dentist for your net worth.
We also explored how to activate that data using the 5 hidden levers. We talked about moving from being a passive dweller to an active asset manager.
Which is huge. Whether you are mapping your net worth, modeling a future move, safely funding renovations, or restructuring your debt to drop mortgage insurance.
The data gives you options.
It does.
And finally, we looked at the danger of the fast fashion algorithm. We saw exactly why a tailored, personalized market review from a human professional will always trump a generic online estimate that is just totally blind to the reality of your unique property.
The big takeaway here is that your home is very likely your hardest working financial asset.
Without a doubt.
While you are sleeping, while you are making dinner, while you're watching TV on the couch, that dual engine is quietly churning in the background.
You deserve to know exactly how much heavy lifting your home has been doing for you.
It really is about pulling back the curtain on your own wealth and taking control of the narrative.
Which brings us to our final thought. We talked earlier about how most of us just hold on to the mental receipt of what we paid on closing day, keeping that number personally preserved in amber.
Yeah, locked in time.
But what if you stopped viewing your primary residence simply as a place to live, or just a family heirloom to pass down, and started actively managing it like a strategic wealth fund?
Think about the potential there.
If you were to run a personalized equity report this afternoon and discovered you had massive leverage you didn't even know about, how does active management of that single asset change the trajectory of generational wealth for your kids?
What legacy does that unlock?
Exactly. Keep the receipts for your laptops. But for your home, it's time to check the current balance.